Perfectly normal survival instincts that can actually get you killed. Imagine walking through the woods when something huge crashes through the bushes. Every movie tells you to immediately leap into action, like you've secretly been training with elite special forces since kindergarten. Reality is a little less glamorous. Reality is your brain sometimes decides the best survival strategy is becoming an extremely confused lawn ornament. Freezing is one of the oldest survival instincts humans have. Long before people invented houses, grocery stores, and online arguments about pineapple on pizza, freezing could actually save your life. Plenty of predators are triggered by movement. If they don't immediately recognize you as food, staying perfectly still sometimes buys precious seconds. The problem is that your nervous system hasn't exactly updated its software in the last few thousand years. Today, the predator is just as likely to be a speeding car, a building fire, or somebody shouting, "Everybody run." And your brain responds with, "Give me a minute." This reaction isn't weakness, it's biology. When your brain detects sudden danger, the information doesn't calmly travel through your logical thinking centers, where tiny scientists wearing lab coats hold a committee meeting. Instead, the alarm system fires almost instantly. The emotional parts of your brain slam the panic button before your conscious mind has even figured out what's happening. Think of it like your home's smoke detector. It doesn't wait to determine whether you're making toast or accidentally setting the kitchen on fire. It just starts screaming. Your brain does exactly that. Sometimes it chooses fight, sometimes flight. And sometimes it chooses the emotional equivalent of unplugging the Wi-Fi and hoping the problem disappears. Researchers sometimes describe this as tonic immobility, a state where movement becomes incredibly difficult despite desperately wanting to act. Your muscles aren't broken, your decision-making isn't gone forever. Your nervous system has simply prioritized survival in a way that made sense for prehistoric humans. Unfortunately, modern emergencies often punish hesitation. Take house fires. One of the biggest reasons people don't escape immediately isn't because they don't know there's danger. It's because their brains refuse to believe what's happening. People wake up smelling smoke and spend valuable minutes looking for the source instead of leaving. Maybe the neighbors are grilling. Maybe I left pizza in the oven. Maybe my smoke detector has become dramatic. Meanwhile, the fire is becoming dramatically more interested in your furniture. Airplane emergencies reveal something similar. Investigations into evacuations have repeatedly shown passengers calmly collecting backpacks, jackets, laptops, and somehow deciding this is the perfect time to organize their carry-on luggage. Imagine sitting inside a metal tube that's literally on fire and thinking, "I should really grab my neck pillow." That's freeze mode wearing business casual. Your brain craves normality. It desperately wants reality to continue making sense. When something impossible suddenly happens, your first instinct isn't always action, it's denial. Because denial is easier than accepting that your world just changed in half a second. The same thing happens during severe weather. Tornado warnings go out, people walk outside, not to escape, to look. Because apparently humans have collectively decided the correct response to a rotating wall of destruction is, "Wow, that's neat." Curiosity is wonderful. Curiosity standing on the porch during a tornado is considerably less wonderful. Even experienced professionals aren't immune. Police officers, firefighters, soldiers, emergency doctors, they all train constantly because training replaces hesitation with automatic action. Under stress, people rarely rise to the occasion. They usually fall back on whatever they've practiced. Which explains why, during panic, many of us suddenly become experts at absolutely nothing. The good news is this instinct isn't unbeatable. Simple mental rehearsal helps. Visualizing emergencies sounds silly until your brain suddenly recognizes a situation it's already imagined. Fire drills exist for exactly this reason. Nobody enjoys standing outside a building pretending the copier exploded. But repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity short-circuits panic. Your brain starts thinking, "Oh, we've done this before." instead of existence has become confusing. It's surprisingly similar to learning to drive. The first time everything feels impossible, gas, brake, mirrors, signals. Other humans making deeply questionable decisions. Eventually it becomes automatic. Emergency responses can work the same way. The irony is almost poetic. One of evolution's greatest survival tools can become dangerous precisely because evolution couldn't predict elevators, highways, apartment buildings, electrical wiring, or airplanes full of people fighting over overhead bin space. Your brain is trying to save your life. It's just using instructions written before civilization existed. Basically, your nervous system downloaded its emergency software sometime around the Ice Age. And apparently nobody remembered to install the update. Here's a fun little thought experiment. You're standing in a crowded city street. Suddenly, dozens of people start running. Do you stop to carefully investigate the situation using calm, rational analysis? Or do your legs immediately vote yes before your brain even joins the meeting? Exactly. Humans copy each other constantly. In fact, we do it so automatically that we rarely notice it happening. Yawning spreads through rooms. Laughter spreads through theaters. Panic spreads through crowds. And unlike your favorite viral dance trend, this one can actually be fatal. Thousands of years ago, copying everyone else was incredibly smart. If every member of your tribe suddenly sprinted away from the trees, there was probably an excellent reason, maybe a predator, maybe a landslide. Maybe Steve accidentally poked another mammoth. Whatever it was, stopping to gather evidence usually wasn't the winning strategy. The fastest survivors often weren't the smartest. They were simply the quickest followers. That instinct is still living rent-free inside your brain. Only now it occasionally activates in situations where the crowd has absolutely no idea what's happening either. Psychologists call this social proof. When uncertainty appears, we unconsciously assume other people know something we don't. Which is funny because they are often assuming exactly the same thing about us. Congratulations, everyone is copying everyone. Nobody actually knows anything. Imagine one person in a shopping mall suddenly starts running, another person sees them, they are running, I should probably run. A third person sees both, oh wow, everyone's running. Within seconds, dozens of people are sprinting away from absolutely nothing. Mass panic events have happened all over the world because of misunderstandings like loud noises, electrical failures, fireworks, collapsing barriers, or simple rumors spreading faster than facts. Crowds don't need accurate information, they just need confidence. Confidence is contagious, accuracy isn't. This instinct becomes especially dangerous in stampedes. People often imagine stampedes as giant groups choosing to push each other. That's rarely what happens. Instead, crowd density becomes so extreme that individuals lose control over their own movement. The crowd starts behaving less like people and more like a liquid. Imagine standing inside a wave made entirely of humans. Pressure builds from every direction, breathing becomes difficult, feet barely touch the ground. Nobody is intentionally attacking anyone, physics simply takes over. Once enough bodies compress together, individual choices almost disappear. Ironically, the instinct telling everyone to follow each other creates the exact conditions that become deadly. Our brains also assume larger groups equal greater safety. Usually that's true. But emergencies flip the equation. If everyone rushes toward the same narrow exit, you've just created the world's least enjoyable traffic jam. History is full of disasters where multiple exits existed. Yet almost everyone tried using the entrance they originally came through. Why? Because under stress, familiarity feels safe, thinking feels expensive, following feels easy. Even outside life or death situations, social proof constantly hijacks your decisions. Ever walked into an elevator where everyone is facing backward? You'd probably spend at least a second wondering if you're somehow wrong. That's how powerful conformity is. People have participated in obviously incorrect experiments simply because everyone else confidently gave the wrong answer. Your brain quietly whispers, if everyone agrees, maybe I'm the weird one. Sometimes that's useful. Sometimes that's exactly how disasters unfold. Emergency experts often encourage people to stay aware of alternative exits before anything happens. Not because they're expecting catastrophe every Tuesday, but because having a mental backup plan makes you less dependent on whatever the crowd decides. The crowd can be incredibly intelligent. It can also collectively sprint toward the worst possible option with astonishing efficiency. Humans love believing we are fiercely independent thinkers. Then one stranger starts running, and suddenly we are auditioning for the sequel. Basically, your survival instinct occasionally mistakes peer pressure for expert advice. Imagine touching a hot stove and not realizing you've burned yourself until several minutes later. Sounds impossible, right? Actually, it happens all the time. The human brain has an incredibly strange relationship with pain. It treats pain less like an honest reporter and more like an overly dramatic coworker who sometimes disappears during the busiest part of the day, then comes back 3 hours later demanding everyone's attention. Pain feels like the most reliable thing your body produces. Break something, pain. Cut yourself, pain. Step on a Lego. Congratulations, you've briefly discovered a new religion centered entirely around screaming. But pain isn't damage, it's a prediction. Your brain receives information from nerves all over your body, compares it against everything else happening, and decides whether making you hurt is the best way to keep you alive. Notice the word decides. That means pain isn't automatic, it's negotiated. Think about soldiers who keep fighting after being shot, athletes finishing competitions with broken bones, or people escaping car crashes before realizing half their arm looks like it lost a disagreement with a lawn mower. Did their injuries magically wait? No. Their brains temporarily hit the mute button. During a genuine emergency, your body dumps chemicals into your bloodstream that dramatically reduce pain. Adrenaline gets most of the fame, but it's part of an entire emergency cocktail. Your brain basically says, we're dealing with the bleeding thing later. Right now, I need these legs working. From an evolutionary perspective, that's brilliant. If a predator bites your leg, stopping to cry about it immediately isn't exactly increasing your odds of survival. Run first, complain later. Unfortunately, this same feature can trick you into making terrible decisions. People have walked away from serious accidents insisting they are completely fine. I don't even think I'm hurt. Meanwhile, everyone around them is looking at a bone that's become far more visible than nature intended. The absence of pain creates confidence. Confidence creates movement. Movement turns manageable injuries into much worse ones. A damaged spine becomes permanently damaged. A fractured leg becomes a shattered one. Internal bleeding keeps, well, bleeding. Your brain delayed the pain because it thought escape was more important than comfort. It wasn't trying to deceive you, it was trying to buy time. The problem is that modern emergencies aren't always solved by running. Sometimes the smartest move is staying still until help arrives. Your nervous system doesn't always get that memo. Pain can also disappear because your attention disappears. Ever gotten a nasty cut while cooking and only noticed because someone else pointed at your hand? You weren't immune to injury, your brain was busy. Attention is expensive, pain competes for it. This is why athletes sometimes finish entire games before discovering torn ligaments. It's why mountain climbers have kept climbing with frostbite they couldn't fully feel. It's why people in survival situations sometimes push themselves far beyond what their bodies can safely handle. The danger isn't just ignoring injuries. It's overestimating what your body can still do. Movies love showing heroes shrugging off wounds. Reality is less cinematic. A person who can't feel pain isn't suddenly stronger. They're actually in much greater danger. There's a rare condition where people are born unable to feel pain at all. At first glance it sounds like a superpower. No headaches, no stubbed toes, no dentist anxiety. Amazing. Except it's one of the most dangerous conditions imaginable. Children with it bite through their own tongues because nothing tells them to stop. They break bones without noticing. They develop infections from untreated injuries. Some accidentally damage their eyes simply by rubbing them too hard. Pain is awful. Pain is also one of the greatest gifts evolution ever gave us. It's basically your body's emergency notification system. The problem comes when your brain decides to snooze those notifications during exactly the wrong moment. Heat is another classic example. Firefighters have described barely noticing burns while actively escaping dangerous situations. Later, once they are safe, the pain arrives like an angry bill collector who finally tracked down your new address. Even emotional context changes pain. Fear, excitement, focus, shock, each one changes how intensely your brain processes injuries. You're not just experiencing your body. You're experiencing your brain's opinion of your body, which is both fascinating and mildly unsettling, the weirdest part. Sometimes the opposite happens. People experience severe pain with surprisingly little physical damage because their brain concludes something is dangerously wrong. Again, pain isn't lying, it's trying to protect you. It's just making educated guesses. Sometimes those guesses are spectacularly accurate. Sometimes they're about as reliable as weather forecasts made by squirrels. So after a serious accident, feeling okay isn't proof that everything is okay. Sometimes it's proof your brain has temporarily prioritized survival over honesty. Basically, your body occasionally puts pain on airplane mode. Right before asking you to make life or death decisions.